the Arab Initiative for Peace in the Middle East. Before dealing with the Arab Peace Initiative in the Middle East, it is more than necessary to point out at the main changes that took place from the late 70s in the world and in the Middle East in particular. We're talking about geopolitics. First, the Iranian Revolution, February 79. Some call it the Islamic Revolution. 2. Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. 3. Iran-Iraq War, September 1980, August 88, huge human and financial losses. 4. Israel invasion of Lebanon, 1982, removing PLO leadership away from Beirut. 5. Saddam Hussein Iraq invasion of Kuwait, 2nd of August 1990, which led to a split in the Arab world. In the first Gulf War, Iraq was defeated by a coalition force of more than 600,000 men from 34 countries, many of them from the Arab countries. The operation was dubbed Operation Desert Storm. We have 6. The end of apartheid in South Africa, April 1994. Nelson Mandela became president. Nelson, who was seen as a terrorist, let's not forget. 7. We have the US invasion of Afghanistan, October 2001. The United States went to Afghanistan in 2001 to wage what they call a necessary war of self-defense, preventive war. 8. 9/11 events, Twin Towers in New York, and hence you have war on terrorism. 9. War on Iraq, 2003. Further split in the Arab world. The US claimed the intent was to disarm Iraq of weapon of mass destruction. Nothing was found. To end Saddam Hussein support for terrorism. It has never been proven that he supported terrorism. And to free the Iraqi people. Is Iraq in a better situation today?
Not at all.
As the world scene was changing, the Arab world went from rejectionism to normalization. In my humble opinion, the above events had much impact on the world scene, in particular the Middle East. As a reminder, Israel's first normalization deals with Egypt 79, Palestinian Liberation Organization 93, Jordan 94. Geopolitical and economic factors paved the way for further changes in the region related to the aftermath of the Arab Spring. The desire of the Arab regime to consolidate power, also by countering radical Islam, fueled by Western media, that feeds on the struggle against Israel. The growing Iranian threat, US policy, as well as economic and energy transition. Hence, one can say that the most significant declaration of the Arab world since the creation of the State of Israel in 1948 is the Arab Peace Initiative, which was launched in March 2002 in Beirut, Lebanon, and was re-adopted by the Arab League in March 2007. The initiative calls on Israel to withdraw from the territories occupied in 1967, find a just solution to the Palestinian refugee problem, and establish a Palestinian state. The diplomatic activity, that is the Arab Initiative, is due to development in the Middle East in the wake of the war on Iraq, which have placed Israel in a better position strategically than ever before. In 2002, there was also war. No war in Iraq, the second intifada. War region, and Iran's ambition to become the region hegemon armed with nuclear weapon were far more muted. There was no major Sunni-Shiite conflict looming with the threat of engulfing the entire region. The situation was reversed with the growing power of Iran. Peace with Israel became, for some, urgent, especially in the eyes of Arab Sunni leaders, or should we say some Arab Sunni leaders. Many looked for ways to work with Israel such that the Arab public would allow them to combine more strongly against Iran and the growth of extremism. In the late 2020 and early 2021, Israel established official diplomatic relations with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, part of what it called the Abraham Accords, to refer to Kushner, renewed its relation with Morocco, and took steps towards establishing a relation with Sudan in a series of developments that occurred with extensive US. Thank you. Remind you, Jared Kushner, son-in-law of Trump. Involvement in Israel relation with the United Arab Emirates and Morocco are the most extensive developed. The changes in the attitude of many Arab states towards Israel is linked to their departure from what we call the zero-sum approach of making the establishment of bilateral relation with Israel conditional on the resolution of the Palestinian issue. Peace with Israel has now become urgent, especially in the eyes of some Arab Sunni leaders. Many are looking for ways to work with Israel, such as that the Arab public will allow them to merge with strong against Iran and growth of Shiism. This, by and large, was the situation context of the Palestinian. However, undoubtedly, the split between Hamas, which has governed Gaza, and the Palestinian Authority in control of the West Bank was changing the dynamic of the Israel-Arab state peace negotiation. Most definitely, Al-Aqsa storm has brought about deep and urgent need to reassess the Palestinian question. Has Hamas' attack on Israel on October the 7th benefited the Palestinians, or rather caused them unprecedented harm? Today, as I said earlier on, the world's largest open-air prison looks like Hiroshima, flattened. More than 35,000 Palestinians have been killed and 80,000 injured, mainly children and women. Many more unaccounted dead people still under rubble. Some say it will take 14 years to rebuild Gaza. It's clear that Israel is committing genocide, which many Western countries have failed to acknowledge. Let's not forget that it's South Africa that brought Israel to the International Court of Justice. The children of Nelson Mandela was a terrorist, then President of South Africa, and Peace Nobel Prize, hugely popular around the world. May he rest in peace. South Africa is a staunch supporter of the Palestinian cause, just like the Republic of Ireland. And I hope you understand why. These were people who know what is to be colonized, persecuted. May I add, the first minister of Northern Ireland, a Sinn Féiner, Michelle O'Neill, also supports the cause of Palestine. Sinn Féin, let's name Jerry Adam, Martin McGuinness, who were, inverted comma, notorious terrorists. They played a key role in bringing peace in Ulster, the Good Friday Agreement. Just like ANC members, Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo, Thabo Mbeki, who were considered terrorists and became prominent members in South Africa. Ironically, may I add, Yasser Arafat, the PLO organization, once were seen as freedom fighter for some, terrorists by others. here, that is why I said, be careful of the discourse. Who is speaking and what is the message behind them? Many countries are considering recognizing the state of Palestine: Spain, Ireland, Norway, Austria, Slovenia. None can deny that the October 7th attack on Israel has had dramatic and drastic effect on the people and the state of Israel. The genocidal response of Prime Minister Menachem Begin is causing a shift in public opinion towards the question of Palestine. Making peace is not easy. However, nothing is impossible. Who would have thought that apartheid will be dismantled in South Africa? Who would have thought that Jerry Adam and Martin McGuinness would one day kiss hand with Queen Elizabeth II? I've learned from one of the students that peace can be made when using the concept of conflict resolution. Peace can be made when the two antagonist sides understand, come to the conclusion that none of them can win, and when there is a fair broker who can bring to the negotiation table, as was the case in Northern Ireland. Up to today, the likelihood of ceasefire seems very unlikely. Remember, if you are following the news, Netanyahu is given Hamas 7 days to answer. He's making an ultimatum. These are not discussions. In fact, there are three possibilities or three options for Israel. First, to wipe out Hamas and all the Gazawi who want to be free and return to their stolen land. Second, he also has to keep the West Bank and the Palestinian Authority under control forever. Some call it impossibilism. Third option, negotiate and make compromise for a just solution. Going back now, reading Said reminds me of the necessity of standing against oppressive and oppression everywhere, of discovering an ethical position that translates into action, and of adopting skepticism before partisanship. Never solidarity before criticism, as Said was fond of saying, just as he often talked about Palestine being at the heart for human right globally today. If new generation are discovering Edward Said, and I just read a few moments ago that students at the University of Newcastle in England are reading Edward Said, in particular post-colonialism. Finding out how the question of Palestine can guide the larger principle, they are also witnessing the immoral, inhuman, large-scale death from the air, starvation as a weapon of war, Western complicity with the plausible genocide, and the people abused beyond what any reasonable person could hear and bear. It leads to one lesson about Palestinians, that's not one. Not even Edward Said could really prepare for. Palestine will save our soul, but it will also break our heart. The United States veto on Thursday, 18th of April 2004, by Israel's main political, financial, and military backer had been expected ahead of the vote. 12 countries voted in favor of the resolution, which was introduced by Algeria, while the United Kingdom and Switzerland abstained. Even if it had passed, the question remained, would Israel abide by it? And how much of historical Palestine would be allocated to the state of Palestine? Besides, let me draw to another important point. Israel's security has come at the expense of Palestinian rights for decades. The West cannot ignore this. Since its inception, Israel has defined its security in both military and non-military terms that undermine basic Palestinian rights and freedom. After its establishment through terror and violence, this tiny colonial entity developed a formidable security doctrine that matches its heightened perception of threats, real and imagined. from a cynical word, a hostile region, and a defiant indigenous population. Even after Israel reached historical peace accord with Palestine in 1993, with the population of illegal Jewish region 700,000. Under the United Nations partition plan, Israel was allocated, may I remind you, 55%. Today, it controls 85% of historic Palestine. To safeguard its illegal settlement, Israel has also carved up and fragmented the Palestinian territory into 202 separate cantons, erecting a system of apartheid and diminishing the Palestinian access to employment, health, and education. The religious Zionist parties strongly support Israel's illegal settlements on occupied Palestinian land and oppose Palestinian statehood of self-determination in any part of Palestine. They united for the 2022 election campaign and the deals brokered by the Prime Minister Menachem Netanyahu, whose Likud party they are allied with. Jewish power is made of followers of the late New York-born extremist Rabbi Meir Kahan. Most notable member of the religious Zionism coalition is Itamar Ben-Gvir, leader of the Jewish power. Ben-Gvir is a devoted follower of another rebellious. Ben-Gvir released a statement declaring, "It's time to show the Palestinian who is the master of the house here." Ben-Gvir wants to impose full Jewish Israeli sovereignty over the Noble Sanctuary Mosque complex in the occupied East Jerusalem. Let's not forget that Trump recognized the whole of Jerusalem as an Israeli territory. Israel, disproportionate in response to the Palestinian struggle for freedom, has also failed to deter Palestinian resistance. The suffering of the Palestinian people has produced greater frustration and anger, leading to cycles of retaliations, as we have seen lately in Gaza. The myth of Israel's security and invisibility has been shattered once and for all. It is time to pursue security through justice instead of pursuing peace through bloody security. To conclude, one may ask, what has Hamas al-Aqsa achieved? Indeed, the Palestinians are paying a very heavy price, especially Gaza people. Some estimate that it will take more than a decade to rebuild Gaza. On the other hand, there might be some positive signs, changes in Western public opinion. Look at what is happening in US campuses. It reminds us, the old one, of the students' revolt against the Vietnam War. Throughout the world, university students are showing their support to the Palestinian people in Britain, in France, and many more countries. Many people around the world are boycotting the firms that support Israel. Some countries are breaking off diplomatic relations with Israel. Not many Arab countries have done so. Freedom has a cost. It's not given. It is taken through sacrifice. And thank you for listening. And I hope I made my points clear. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, Professor Mansouri, for this highly informing and very deeply paper in terms of the intersectionality by which you treated you approached the subject of history of Palestine and the multi-faced way that you did that by using discourse analysis and history and post-colonial or post-coloniality and the rest of it. Thank you so much, Professor Mansouri. And now I open I invite the attendees to ask questions. And I'm going to borrow a few minutes from the next panel. Sorry for that. for the discussion of this very important and one of the most informing and interesting papers I have heard, without exaggeration, on Palestine. So the floor is yours. Everybody would like to ask questions, interact with Mr. Mansouri, ask him questions and or comment.
Dr. Goofy is raising his hand. The floor is yours. Over to you.
Yes. May I allow to ask one question?
You're welcome. Good morning.
Thank you so much. Okay, I would like to thank Dr. Mansouri for his invaluable contribution. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like to thank Dr. Mansouri for his invaluable contribution to the conference, in which he sketches out the evolution of the Palestinian cause from the early days where Zionism was formed or had been formed as an ideology to Tufan al-Aqsa. But I would like to ask one question regarding the latest reports, which talk of a soon normalization of relationship between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Dr. Mansouri, don't you think that if this happens, it will be as if the beginning of the end for the Palestinian question at the diplomatic and political level, and the destruction of what came to be known as the two-state solution? Speaking about the military side, it goes without saying the Palestinian resistance does not depend on any kind of support from the Arab regimes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. or Dr. Goofy, for this question. Yes, that's a very difficult question. Would Saudi Arabia normalization with the state of Israel means the end of the Palestinian questions? I'm not sure. There's one point I did not perhaps want to deal with, okay, because it's very touchy. You will find in many history books that right from the beginning, if you go to the Sharif of Mecca, okay, in the McMahon letters, Sharif of Mecca, okay, they were not against Zionists coming to the Holy Land, Palestine. The same thing, the establishment of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in 1948, how did they get the money? Who helped them? Okay, because it's the Saud clan, not the one. Okay, I guess the other tribes and made. And at that time again, there was not many objections, okay, for Jews to establish themselves in Palestine. Perhaps they have not understood the meaning behind Zionism is to set a foot in Palestine, and the rest they can do it, because as I said, once immigration increased in Palestine, okay, they knew there are ways and means to control. Now, the problem of Saudi normally has been able to turn their attention to the real enemy of the Arab Muslim world and made of Iran, Shia, as the main threat. Because here again, you need to go back to history, the schism between Sunni and Shia. And when I say Sunni, perhaps I need to point out is the Wahhabism, okay, it's doctrine of Saudi Arabia, okay, that has led, okay. So, and perhaps many people said, what is happening in Gaza today, okay, is make you think twice before normalizing relation with Israel. So will they normalize on what's happening today? There might be a cost for Saudi royal family in the long term. That's perhaps my opinion. And I hope I have answered your question. Satisfied?
All right, thank you,
Oh, yeah,
Professor Mansouri, for this answer.
Yes,
Is there any?
yes, okay.
Is there any comment or question?
I would go next if there is no person here asking a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Professor, for this very compelling speech. And I think my question complements very well the question of Dr. Ghafi. Why? Because everybody is talking about the two-state solution, but we may ask the question that, is it truly a possibility anymore? Which means, is it truly an option to be discussed on the table? We don't have Palestinians any longer, and that they are either in exile or kind of they are assassinated, and we count the war since the 7th of October. I don't think it's a possibility any longer. So I would ask, what are your speculations for kind of what would happen is, or what might be suggested as a resolution to this question? I think it's not easy to ask such a question. It's not easy to make any speculations when it comes to the Palestinian question. But what is your kind of reading about, Professor Mansouri? Thank you.
Thank you. As I said, the question of Palestine or the Palestinian question is very tricky and very complex because, as you said, okay, how many Palestinians are left? Okay, you have Palestinian people in Palestine, in the West Bank, and they are not free. And you have Palestinians in Gaza, and most of the world is against them because they're pointing out, okay, Hamas as an extremist, Islamist. There's a fear-mongering, okay? No Western media is speaking about religious extremism in Israel. And when I said that Israel today controls about 78%, see how the Palestinian territory is fragmented. That is why I have asked the question, is it possible in today's situation to have a viable Palestinian state as stated by the United Nations, okay, partition plan of 1967? How can those Israeli settlements in the Palestinian territories, okay, be brought or dismantled? And as you see, okay, the religious right in Israel is refusing any compromise. And the question of Palestine, had there been no Al-Aqsa storm, okay, the question of Palestine would be forgotten. Where was the Western media speaking of Palestine, of the problem of Palestine? When I first stated by saying that I was born at a time, okay, where the question of Palestine was on the news almost every day. If you look back at the 20th century or 21st century, how many news about Palestine? Okay, for the Western world, it was almost irrelevant. And even in the Arab world, the question of Palestine was pushed aside. Many Arab countries, okay, started first and foremost to look at their interest. United Arab Emirates, okay, when they made relation with Israel, was it not because of economic interest? Bahrain, maybe they were afraid of Iran, Shia. Morocco made the relation. Why? Out of interest, political and economic. The problem, okay, is perhaps people are guided by that interest. Countries now look first and foremost for that interest. Okay. Now, when we are making this contribution, I said first, I'm making a contribution on the question of Palestine because first and foremost, I am human. Secondly, I am Algerian. Algerian with a past. That is why I said, and I mentioned Ireland. Why are the Irish supporting? Why are the South Africans supporting? It's people who know what is persecution. Okay, that is why they are at the forefront of the support. Okay, so I don't think, as you said, that we can give an answer to will there be a viable Palestinian state. It's only the future will tell, inshallah.
Thank you once more, Professor Mansouri. I think Dr. Siddiqui has got a question or a comment. Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much, everyone, and Professor Mansouri for the compelling talk. Okay, of course, you have started your historical overview, starting from the Balfour Declaration. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yes. I would have liked, okay, if you have started before, like in the 19th century. For instance, my colleague from the University of Misila has spoken about the role of Saudi Arabia, okay? And I would have liked you to have talked a little bit about the role of the Ottoman Empire in the creation of the Zionist state. It is very significant that I think it's often overlooked aspect of the historical narrative. I think it has been unintentional, okay, but their policies and decisions during this the Ottoman period. Okay, this is okay. What my paper later on will be on, little okay, more or less. But it has laid the ground for the establishment of many Jewish settlements, especially agricultural Jewish settlements in Palestine. So it has really shaped the trajectory of the Zionist movement and the creation of the Zionist state. So perhaps it was unintentional, but it was the Ottomans who have laid the ground for the establishment of the Jewish settlements in Palestine. Okay.
Thank you for your comment.
And it is historically recorded. I have nothing against the Ottoman Empire, but okay, it is them who have allowed the Jewish settlements in Palestine, unfortunately.
I don't know if I can say I agree or disagree with you, because this is a quite a tricky issue when it comes to the Ottoman Empire. Was the Ottoman Empire imperialist or not? Okay, but keep in mind that we can go even earlier. Okay, you can go to Indonesia, okay, to the Andalus. When the Jews, okay, had been persecuted.
Yes.
They went to Maghreb, and many of them went also to Turkey, to the Ottoman. Okay, so there was not much antagonism between the Jews and the Arabs, as long as they obeyed to a certain Islamic rules, okay, jizya, etc. Okay, of course, from the 19th century, when there had been a lot of, if you want, Western or Eastern persecution of the Jews, many of them, okay, were allowed by the Ottomans to settle in Palestine. Okay, now whether they had understood that those Jewish immigrants would later claim the land, it's an open question. Okay, but of course, the Ottomans, Turkey has played a role, in a sense, to open the door for Jewish immigrants, okay, at the beginning of the 19th century. And don't forget, the Ottomans, okay, was a sick man. Okay? I don't think that they were politically conscious. Okay, what might happen? They were not perhaps aware of the emergence of Zionism. Okay, many people speak of the Zionist protocol. Okay, 1897 or something like that, the Conference of Basel by Herzl, which had established the plan how to set foot in Palestine and then how to create a state of Israel. Okay, the creation of the state of Israel, remember, came out of the desire of some Jews, okay, to find a place where they can live. I will not say peacefully, but at least in a place where they can protect themselves. That is why the issue of security is very, very important for all Israeli politicians. I think that's all what I can say when it comes to the Ottoman role in Palestine.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much once more, Professor Mansouri. I think now it's time to move to the next panel, if there's
just for a moment, Professor Babkar, and I think Mohammed Gifi wants to jump in again in here. So we give him the floor just very shortly before we move to the next panel. Thank you.
Just one sentence. Just one sentence. I beg your pardon. So, as an addition to what has been mentioned by Dr. Mansouri concerning his answer to Khedidja's question, I think the two-state solution exists no longer, and it is not realistic. Palestine should be for the Palestinians or for the Palestinians. The question is why. This has been already mentioned and insisted by the Jews themselves, who insist upon the Jewishness of the state as a principle, okay, for the let's say for the persistence of their state. So that's why they wanted, for example, to exclude the 48 Palestinians, okay, from Israel, despite the fact they have Israeli passport and they go to Israeli schools and they participate in the Israeli parliament. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is it time to move to the next panel? I mean,
okay.
Just one word.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Mansouri.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that blacks and white in South Africa would live more or less in harmony? Remember, Nelson Mandela Rainbow Coalition. And remember what happened in South Africa. Confession, okay, to forgive those who had committed crime against South African people. I would never say there's no solution. Okay? It's when the two people realize that in the long run, no one can win over the other. Netanyahu can crush Hamas, and he's doing it. Okay? Netanyahu is promising to move into Rafah, come what may. But the idea of Hamas, freedom, just like Che Guevara said, patria o la muerte.
Patria o la muerte. Thank you so much, Professor, for this answer. But we have to remember also, it was kind of just a couple of days ago in the streets of Cape Town in South Africa, there were some students holding the kufiyas and the flag of Palestine. They were attacked by pro-Zionist in there. So I think that kind of racism is inherited mentality. It's not easy to kind of put down with this disease. That's why this question of Palestine is getting more complex over time. So I think we have all to thank Professor Mansouri for the great and compelling historical background. And I think it has been a very good start because it opens the door to the literary reflections on the Palestinian case and diaspora. So this historical background opened the door and it fed our minds into the entire question. So a big clap to our professor and for the great talk, everybody. And we thank you for your time, for your availability today, despite all of your very busy schedules. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Professor Babkar, for moderating the session.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you, and we hope, as you know, that we don't have parallel sessions. We have sessions one after the other. We have done this on purpose to give possibility to our audience to attend different panels and take part in the discussions. So now we will look out, and please try to log in again using the second link that leads to the panel sessions and the poetry reading session. See you soon with the first panel.